This is the story of a spiritual journey that goes wrong, an annual gathering of the Ummah that ends up in anxiety and stress, a pilgrimage that places obstacles and hardships in your path, and from which people return with a heavy heart, spiritually cleansed but tired, defeated and silenced.
If they aren't being able to deliver these services and the promises they're making, we want to know why.
He was cheating us because there was no direct flight at all from Birmingham. The one he was offering never existed.
Do you do a Hajj and Umrah business from these premises? Oh. You either know or you don't know, yes or no?
So we expected a certain standard level of service from our agent.
It's November 2011 and Heathrow Airport is brimming with families waiting to greet their loved ones. Parents, aunts, uncles and grandparents are returning from Hajj and relatives wait eagerly with welcome gifts. Over the last few weeks, many have had little more than a phone call to assure them of arrival and safety. This isn't a holiday, and you'd be a fool to wait for a postcard. I joined in the wait to greet them. I wanted to be the first to hear about their trips. We often hear of people who return from Hajj with horror stories about the way their journeys were regulated, and I wanted to document some of these and analyse the British Hajj travel industry.
The whole thing was terrible, from beginning to end. But yes, we suffered a lot, but that's part of Hajj. But it was unnecessary. The suffering was unnecessary.
I went to Hajj 30 years ago and I paid £1,000, and I think I had a better experience than I did with £2,500.
Muslims believe this spiritual journey, which is one of 5 pillars of their faith, cleanses them of all sins. They're required to make the Hajj once in their lifetimes, if they can afford to and if they're physically able to. It's an ancient journey, derived from the practice of Prophet Ibrahim and unchanged since the time of Muhammad, peace be upon him. Hajj has to be hard. The physical endurance elicits the cleansing of sins, and the pinnacle of this journey is the day of standing in prayer on Mount Arafat, and that's followed by a rewarding night under the stars in the open and rocky plains of Muzdalifah. A day that sums up the famous expression that after hardship comes ease. With this in mind, pilgrims often tolerate the greatest of hardships: hot sun, long walks, being away from their loved ones, and, in many cases, tour operators who are there to scam you out of your money.
I went to Hajj myself in 2008 and my trip was excellent. So when I returned, I told everybody about it and I urged everyone to go to Hajj and to use the same travel operator that I had used. And my sister went the following year, taking my advice, going with the same people that I had told her to go with. But she didn't have such a great experience.
We've come to the West Country to meet a couple who say their Hajj was marred with confusion, delays, and a lack of basic privacy. Sumaya and Abdul Mumin went to Hajj 3 years ago after hearing about a travel agent from friends and family.
We started on a slightly negative experience in that our dates that we were promised weren't kept to. Our flights out were delayed, and we went with a different airline to what we originally had agreed to.
We were on the flight when we realised we had to actually make a stopover because we'd actually arranged to have a direct flight. But it was on the flight when we realised that we were going to have to make a stop.
We booked in advance. We paid a reasonable sum of money, and so we expected a certain standard level of service from our agent.
What about when you got to Saudi Arabia?
We paid an extra sum of money to have a dedicated single room for ourselves. When we arrived at the hotel, we found that it was a completely different location to what had been agreed and promised. It was a lot further away from the masjid, and also the ideal that the hotel wasn't the standard that was agreed to in terms of when we made the booking.
Did you at least get your own room?
No, we didn't get our own room. I mean, when we got there, the hotel was fully packed, so there wasn't any space at all. And then they put us in a room where I was having to share. We were both sharing actually with another couple and 2 other men, so non-mahram men. So it meant that whenever I was in the room, I wasn't able to take off my hijab and relax, which is what you want your hotel room for, wouldn't you, when you're in Hajj? So that was, I think, for me, the biggest inconvenience.
And this is the couple they ended up sharing their room with. Tanvir and Tahmina were also at Hajj that year and found themselves sharing a room with Sumaya and her husband and 2 other men.
There was a curtain. They fashioned a curtain.
It wasn't a curtain. It
was
was
just
bed sheets and towels hanging on a string.
Bed sheet to cordon off just the 2 men, but on that side there was still the other person. So
it was 2 couples basically behind one curtain, and the other 2 on the other side.
And you 2 couples, just to clarify this, are not mahram to each other?
No. The other thing is the door to the room didn't even lock. It was the first door when the entrance from the lobby. So basically, I think that particular room was used by the employees.
It's basically just a room behind the lobby.
Yeah. So it was anyone.
And it's like a staff room. I think people just go in there and just hang out.
They put beds there. They put beds there to actually accommodate everyone. So yeah, I mean, it didn't even shut properly. It was
that room had 2 beds when we walked in.
Initially.
When we first walked in, it had 2 beds. By the second night, there were 6 beds in there.
Basically, myself and the other lady, we had our burqa on and our hijab on throughout the whole stay because we couldn't take it off. We slept in that as well because you just can't take it off because there's a non-mahram man there. And you can't sleep properly either because, when you're sleeping, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know if you're moving around too much. So there was no restful sleep because you're always making sure that you're completely covered. Are you covered? Are you completely covered? What if someone walks in? And then there were instances where some stranger would walk in and just peek behind the curtain or the bed sheet just to see what's going on, and we'd be sitting there. No.
Of course not. There was a bathroom to each floor. So 1 bathroom to each floor, and it's being shared by about 12, 14 people. One bathroom.
Basically, in order to go to the bathroom, we'd have to cross the lobby. This is, across the lobby, and there's usually like a whole row of men waiting to use the bathroom. So whenever myself and the other lady needed to use the bathroom, we had to go there to see if there's men waiting around. If not, if we go in, if there were, then we'd go back and sit in the room for a little while and go.
It wasn't just that. There was always a bunch of people because it was a lobby. It was a big hotel. There was always a bunch of people, either staff, either the guy making tea, or someone else trying to sell something. So there was always 4 or 5 people there. So you'd have to walk past them, go to the bathroom, and come back. And it's not appropriate at all.
And this, in our burqa and our hijab, go to the bathroom, have a shower with wet hair, with the hijab and everything, and then come back.
Both couples were promised trips to the city of Medina, but that never happened.
Yeah, we'd always heard it was the peaceful side of Hajj. It was completely different, completely just a change from Makkah, how busy everything is there, and Medina so peaceful. So we were quite looking forward to it. We were quite excited about going there. Even after all the mess, we thought, okay, at least in Medina we'll have our own hotel, and things will get better, and then we can relax and we can enjoy it, and just focus on praying instead of just thinking about all the rubbish that's going on.
We'd originally planned to go for about 10, 11 days, and we had to cut our stay short by a day or two. In the end, we didn't manage to go to Medina because of delays in the bus arriving, and obviously we had commitments back in terms of getting back to work, and children being left behind.
So you had paid for a package which included you going to Mecca and to Medina, and yet Medina never happened.
No, I mean, we were ready on the day that we were supposed to depart from Medina. We were completely ready to go because we knew that was the day. The last 3 days we'd be spending in Medina, so we were completely ready to go. And then somebody just came to us right at the last minute and said, well, the bus hasn't arrived, there'll be one coming tomorrow, you can go on that one. So we waited for the next day because we still thought we'd have a day and a half or so, and the bus didn't come the next day either.
So we were quite excited about it, but it just didn't happen. For about 3 days we were told, the bus is coming, get ready. The bus is coming, get ready. So we'd sit in our room, not even go to the Haram and pray. We'd just sit in our room waiting for the bus, and it wouldn't show up. And the next day, again, same thing, we wouldn't go to Haram. We're there, we're in Makkah, we're not going to Haram.
So if they aren't being able to deliver these services and the promises they're making, we want to know why.
Rashid Mogradia went to Hajj in 2005 and says his bad experience led him to start up the Council of British Hajjis. It aims to help pilgrims address some common problems. I asked him about the cases of men and women being forced to share rooms.
This is not an isolated case, and this year for some bizarre reason we've seen an increase in similar cases. We had a case in Bolton where a group of 4 people, family members, had to share with another group of 4 members, totaling 8 people in a room. How they can get a room so big, I'm not too sure, but to share a room with somebody that you don't know is totally unacceptable.